Picture this. I'm working in a Jewish bookstore, and one day I pick up this book that has only emojis on the cover. I open it up, I try to read it, but, well, I couldn't. I look on the side and I see that it's the Emoji Haggadah, which, in case you don't know, the Haggadah is a book which is read on the Jewish holiday of Passover, except this Haggadah is translated entirely into emojis. Since then, I've actually learned how to read this book, and now I'm able to read basically all of it. But I wanted to learn more, so last year I actually reached out to the author of this book, a man named Martin Bodek, who, among other things, has written several Haggadah parodies. So clearly this man has an appreciation for the Passover Haggadah.
And there's a key in the back where I explain how exactly to read this thing, but I've been told that it's not good enough. More is needed.
So that's what I want to do in this video with you. I want to explore this incredible creation, a book that's written entirely in emojis that I can actually read. Let's explore the idea behind this book, how it was actually created, and how the heck you're supposed to read this thing. Before we move on, let me take a moment just to introduce myself. My name is David, and on this channel, Yiddishkeit, we explore what it means to be a Jew. Personally, I like to explore this by looking at Jewish history, culture, and art. And the Emoji Haggadah is such a great example of all three of these things because not only is it an expression of what it means to be a Jew today in the 21st century, but it's also a culmination of centuries of Jewish tradition and art. So let's explore the Emoji Haggadah, and to do that we need to travel back 3,000 years to ancient Egypt, where our story begins. Egypt would give us two crucial things. The first, the story of the Exodus, which gives us the book of the Haggadah. The second is hieroglyphics. Now these were one of the earliest forms of writing and in a lot of ways influenced the way we communicate through language today. Hieroglyphics are pictures that help describe the world around us, and they can be split into two groups. The first group is pretty simple. They just show a picture of what we mean. The other group is a little different because they are pictures that represent a sound. And so when a few of these sounds are put together, they can combine into a word or a phrase. Now let's fast forward 1,000 years ahead to ancient Rome, where language has developed into 26 distinct symbols or letters that represent all the sounds we make and can be combined to create words. In fact, you probably realize that we use this system today, specifically the Roman letters and sometimes even the Roman style, which today we refer to as a font. And finally, we get to emojis, which are very similar to hieroglyphics, except the pictures are only of what we mean, not sounds. Many of the core emojis have existed for some time, but emojis gained widespread use since smartphones have become commonplace. And the emoji set grew over time to include several categories of images, and therefore it's considered to be one of the fastest growing languages in all of history. Martin's idea was to translate the words of the Haggadah into these images, but I wanted to know, how in the world did he do that? But first, I had to ask him a bigger question. And that was, when I picked up the Emoji Haggadah, it just clicked for me. And so I wanted to know, what was it about emojis that worked so well? Why do people love emojis?
Well, I'm not an anthropologist or a sociologist, but you always come back to the basics. We still respond to the visuals. Advertisements are based on the visual and as few words as possible. That's the whole, in Yiddish we would say, the chachma of how advertising works. And that's how almost all of social media is predicated upon. Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook all function better, and people respond better when you have pictures of what you do. This is why people take pictures of food, of all things, because people respond to this kind of stuff, even though some people might think, what are you taking pictures of food for? Because it's a picture. Because a picture is worth 1,000 words.
In fact, for the past 700 years, Haggadahs have been illustrated and painted, from the 1300s in Spain to Germany in the 1400s, and then in the 1600s we have Italy, Prague, and Amsterdam. And then we get to today where there are so many different beautifully illustrated Haggadahs, and so we can see that the idea of a visually compelling book for Passover is basically universal in the Jewish world. And so in recent times, there are so many Haggadahs that appeal to so many different types of people, but there's still one group that did not have a Haggadah that catered to them.
Everyone but adults was being catered to, but teenagers were still the gap in the market. There is one kind of Haggadah that keeps coming out, the Swift Haggadah, the 30-minute Haggadah, the hour Haggadah. And it's like, no. Let's not speed through all of this. Let's sit down and communicate with each other over something we might enjoy together.
Okay, so let's get to the big question. How did Martin create this Emoji Haggadah? And so to do that, Martin had to expand the use of the emojis from just being pictures of what they mean to the way the Egyptians used them to also represent sounds. He also needed to stick to the emoji set that was available to him at the time in 2017. And that set is determined by this company called Unicode.
So Unicode is the consortium that dictates what emojis exist in the world, and every separate company makes their own rendering, but each emoji is an interpretation of what Unicode decides should be available on the market for the public.
Wow, that is such like an insider baseball. I would never have done any of that. And by the way, this is why Apple and Android have the same set of emojis, but the pictures themselves will look a little bit differently. And this further supports the idea that emojis are kind of their own language, since all the devices stick to the same agreed upon set of images, which again is managed by Unicode. So now that we know what Martin had to work with, I still had this central question, which was, how did Martin turn hundreds of phrases and thousands of words into emojis?
When I was trying to figure out how do I write this, how do I, what do I do? How do I translate all this stuff? I found a website called iemoji.com. It works the way iPhones work now. In the last 2 upgrades of the iPhone, if you type in a certain word, the emoji will pop up. Mm-hmm. People take it for granted that that's how it works now. It didn't used to work that way as recently as 2 years ago. But iEmoji was the first thing that I found that worked that way. So I put in the first couple of letters of a word, and I was like, oh, and an emoji pops up as a suggestion. So then I turned that all into sentences and paragraphs, and I took each sentence and I cut it and I pasted it into a Word document. It was extremely painstaking, which is why it took me 1.5 years.
Besides the basic effort of just translating the Haggadah into emojis, there were several huge obstacles that came along the way. They were all based on one problem, and that is that there are many more words than there are emojis.
It's a very noun-based set of hieroglyphs. So when you're dealing with non-nouns, I think that's where I had the problem, and I had to get creative.
And so the first step in the translation of the Haggadah into emojis is that it would have to be a pretty loose translation.
So actually the base text that I used is Sefaria.org's Haggadah Online. So I took their English interpretation and I translated that, because obviously the Hebrew text will remain exactly the way it is, but the English text may have verbs and adjectives transposed a little bit. So that's what I used. So if you really want to read my Haggadah perfectly, get the Sefaria text, and you could put them side by side and just breeze right through it.
But besides adapting to the language changes, like dropping adverbs and switching words around, there was still the issue that
the emoji set does not contain everything. It really doesn't. There were certain words that just weren't available to me. So there's certain connecting words and sentences that aren't there, like the and or. So for or, I used the rowboat or. But for there's nothing. I couldn't figure out a way to say never. There are certain objects that aren't there. They're like a barbecue, a little grill isn't in the emoji set. And I found that surprising. There's no wall. The word wall comes up every once in a while in the Haggadah. No such thing. And there's no field. There's no grassy expanse. So I went with the emoji for a stadium, And I was like, okay, I hope that people understand that this is what I mean to say by field. Here, there, you, me, I, them, that, nothing. So in the key at the end of the book, I describe, this means you, this means there, this means, the past, and that means me. And you have to just keep track of which way the hand is pointing to figure out these specific words. So there's nothing for in and out except for an inbox and an outbox, right? Because there is no in and out there in this set. It's just pictures of things mostly.
Okay, so let's learn how to read the Emoji Haggadah. But before we do that, you need to keep in mind that
for most of the set, I would say about 80% of it, there was a single picture that could describe something. So that's what I went for first. I went for Pashat Pshat, to use a Hebrew phrase. I went at the surface that would make it easiest for people to read. Then if there wasn't a single picture to create something, then I used two. So for example, like you said, for matzah, there's no picture of matzah in the Microsoft Word set. There wasn't anything even close. So I had to do not bread. Then when I couldn't even describe something with two words, then I had to go for the sound. And then when I couldn't even find the sound, then I went for puns and plays on words. I was having a lot of fun with this page, but I couldn't figure out the word for under. So I used the Australian flag. If you're not me and you're reading this text, this is what you have to work with. 80% of it is just straight up. Straight up, it's right there for you to interpret. But you have to understand when you see something as a reader, if you run into a word you don't understand, it means that I even struggle to figure it out, and then start getting creative and see what I meant to convey.
with all of this background in mind, let's actually try to read this Emoji Haggadah together. Let's start with this set. Can you figure out what it's referring to and what it says? Remember that each emoji corresponds to a word, either as a picture of what it means or as a sound. Now, if you haven't figured this one out yet, it is the list of the 10 plagues. And this one's pretty easy since most pictures here are of what they mean.
The blood one is a syringe with blood in it. And if this wasn't in the emoji set, I'd have nothing for blood, which is kind of interesting. And I remember that this syringe wasn't always in the emoji set. And I think they just introduced it before I started working on this. And I remember thinking, what am I going to use for blood? Just a red dot? It's not going to work. And then I was thinking, do I do a blood type? Like the letters A and B, I think, are in red. I was like, would people even understand that? Could I use that? So, for example, it's dedicated to my Abba. So the AB could have been a blood type.
Oh, that's funny.
But that would have been too much of a stretch. So I'm very thankful that at least they had the syringe.
Okay, so let's read this together. The list of the plagues are blood, frogs, lice, or in this case, bugs, wild animals, the death of animals, pestilence, and then there's boils on the skin, hail, locust, but there is none, so caterpillar, darkness, and then the death of firstborn.
I always thought boils, I never thought of it like boiling water. I always thought of like skin on fire. And that's what I thought. That was like super pain. And the only way to represent pain was with fire.
No, but yes, I was thinking to boil.
All right, so let's try one that's a little bit harder, but still quite easy and recognizable, which is this list in the Haggadah. Can you figure it out? Feel free to pause and try to figure this one out yourself. But in case you haven't figured it out yet, it is the Haggadah, this Aramaic poem at the end of the Haggadah, where the actions of each character leads directly to the next one. Here we can see yet another method that Martin used when translating the Haggadah into emojis, to use just some of the letters that spell out the name of the emoji. So here he uses the first 4 letters of the word camera to represent the word came. Okay, so now that we know that, let's read this section of the Emoji Haggadah. It says, "And then came the Holy One, blessed be he, and killed the angel of death, who killed the butcher, who slaughtered the bull, who drank the water that put out the fire, that burnt the stick, that hit the dog, that bit the cat, that ate the goat, that our father bought for 2 zuzim, or foreign currency. 1 goat, or chad gadia." All right, so if you're feeling confident, let's try just one more. Let's see if you can figure this next one out. The hint I'm going to give you is that this one is also right next to Haggadah. It's at the end of the Haggadah. So feel free to pause and try to figure it out. In case you haven't figured it out yet, this one is another song called Who Knows One.
Who, what, when, where, and why aren't in the emoji set. But fortunately, I found something for who, which is the owl. But I still don't have anything for what, when, why. That's still just a question mark. But the who, at least I had a sound pun.
And as you're reading this song, just remember that whenever you see two of the same emojis in a row, it means the plural form. And so let's read this section together. It goes like this. Who knows 13? I know 13. 13 are the attributes. 12 are the tribes. 11 are the stars. 10 are the Aseres HaDibros, the 10 statements, commandments. 9 are the months of birth. 8 are the days to circumcision. 7 days of the week. 6 are the orders of the Mishnah. 5 are the books of the Torah. 4 mothers, 3 fathers, and 2
the tables of the law.
Okay. So 2 are the tablets of the law, and 1 is our God in the heavens and the earth. Now that we're armed with the knowledge of how to read the Emoji Haggadah, including passages like the 10 plagues, Haggadah, and Who Knows One, I wanted to get to the bigger picture, which was, how did this idea become a reality? Like, how did Martin's idea of translating the Haggadah end up in the bookstore where I found it?
And then a publisher got in touch with me. The publisher was Kitav Publications. And they said, we saw this lovely and interesting piece of work. Would you like to work with us? And we could expand it for you and do the proper marketing and so forth. So I went to print it and they said, we have a problem. So what's the problem? It looks like you copied and pasted text and it really doesn't look proper on the print run. You need to redo the entire thing with a plugin for Microsoft Word. They have their rendering of the same emoji set that Samsung has and Apple has, and you use that. So what took me a year and a half to write, I condensed pretty much into 2 weeks, and I recreated the entire thing using the Microsoft Word plugin for the emojis, and the end result is the pretty result that we have with what happened.
But the effort was worth it, because what Martin produced is truly one of its kind.
So as far as I know, I am the first and only one in the world to use the entire established emoji set.
The novelty of this book being written in emojis actually coincides with the goal of the Haggadah itself, and that is to bring people together over their shared connection of stories and later on of images that we as human beings just have. And it's also been practiced as a Jewish tradition every year on the holiday of Passover.
I have said to others, if all my Haggadahs were filled with grape juice stains, because people have taken the time to use them. As a matter of fact, I once read an interview. There are famous Haggadah collectors that have like thousands in their collection. And the point that they make is, this is something that is supposed to be used. I'm going to take out this 800-year-old text and I'm going to use it. I'm going to add to the grape juice stains, and that's perfectly fine with me.
We can actually see these stains on many manuscripts that are hundreds of years old, like this one from Spain, this one from Germany, and this one from Italy.
I have the same attitude. This is very nicely packaged, the Emoji Haggadah, and it's in beautiful white glossy pages. I would love if they're ruined. Go ahead and ruin it, enjoy it, splash it, and have your fun with it.
The Haggadah as a book has served to connect generations of Jews at the dinner table with the story of the Exodus. And this connection we have with each other is central to the holiday of Passover and how we as Jewish people of all ages connect to our heritage.
And then I got amazing letters from random people telling me things like, I've had struggles with my family. I've been on the outs with my teenager. And you know what? I showed him this Emoji Haggadah, and all of a sudden he spent all the time with us. Wow. And as soon as I got emails like that, I was like, I need to continue spreading this to create an atmosphere where people want to be in. I said, I'm trying to create a Seder where no matter how big your company is, I've got one for everybody. So that's the goal now. I'm just going to keep cranking them out. The others that I have are mostly, I'm just being cute. And although they on a smaller level bring families together, this one is the major one that people will sit down and pore over. So if you're looking to connect, if you're looking to have something with more meaning and a little bit of fun to add to your Seder, this is the purpose of this creation. And that's the entire reason it exists.
If you're still watching, I want to thank you for being here to the end of this video. I'm going to assume that you found this book, the Emoji Haggadah, quite interesting, which is why I would highly recommend that you purchase it from Amazon and have it for this year's Seder. And you could also check out other books and Haggadah parodies from Martin's Amazon page, which you can find below this video. One final note to make this a little personal, I'm actually very invested in this topic of the Haggadah and its many uses and adaptations over the centuries. Personally very interested in the history of the illustrated Haggadah, and it's something I've been researching for a few years now. In fact, last year I had the chance to go on a road trip around several cities on the East Coast and film several historic Haggadahs and important stories in the Haggadah's history. However, the truth is that I have not yet been able to put all these thoughts and videos and experiences together into a coherent story and a documentary for you to watch. But I'm sure as time goes on, the story will crystallize and I will have something incredible to show all of you in the near future. And of course, if you're interested in Jewish culture, history, and art, then you, my friend, are in the right place. There are so many explorations on this channel that I highly recommend you check out. My name is David, and welcome to this channel.